environmental collapse. If you're willing to face and investigate shocking verifiable realities that mainstream media sources and their distract and divide talking heads will never tell you, tune in to the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour, Saturdays at 4 p.m. on AM 560, The Answer. This is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.
Raj Shah and Rick Borick, your host for Unlock Your Wealth, Saturdays at 7 a.m. here on AM 560.
You don't want to walk into retirement not having the income and the vacations and everything else that you dreamed of in retirement.
But the people have put together a plan. They don't make that frantic phone call, and they're not worried about a market downturn. And every time the market goes up, they're happy with it because it's all a gift.
Join Raj and Rick for strategies to unlock your wealth. Saturdays at 7 a.m. here on AM 560.
Summertime is the perfect time to get outside and get your morning going. So grab a Nature Valley granola bar, get outdoors, and experience the energizing power of nature this morning.
It is 8:38, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time, and Jim.
Inbound Kennedy, delays start at Cumberland. It's 37 minutes, O'Hare to downtown, 21 from Montrose, 16 of the Express. Outbound 29 minutes downtown to the airport. The Edens is 17 minutes inbound or outbound from Montrose and Lake Cook. The Eisenhower, it's 37 minutes, 390 to downtown, outbound 29. Stevenson, 34 minutes from the Veterans Memorial to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 21 minutes, 95th to downtown. On northbound, DuSable Lakeshore Drive. It's heavy from the Stevenson to Monroe. It's 15 minutes, Marquette to Monroe. Lollapalooza gates open at 11 this morning. Northbound Tri-State, it's heavy. 95th Street to the Mylong Bridge. Traffic's a little slow on eastbound I-80, Shepley to I-55. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Breezy and humid this morning with maybe a thunderstorm sticking around through the remainder of the day. High 86, partly cloudy, 65 overnight. Trust me, nicest day of the week coming up tomorrow. 76 with the humidity pretty much erased, and a good day on Saturday as well. 74 at O'Hare. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. When we talk about the policy response to COVID-19, we mainly discuss the great expansion of government and, by extension, people's dependency on it. Well, for obvious reasons, when you lock down the world's largest economy, that's what you're going to focus on. That's sort of the ultimate regulation, isn't it? But that's not to say that underneath that, as people were trying to cope in this new reality, there weren't relaxations of government regulations that have proved productive, I guess, minor ways for people to try to retain some of their sanity. Looking at the glass as half full was C.Jarrett Dieterle, who's a senior fellow at the R Street Institute in D.C., and the author of the new book, Give Me Liberty and Give Me a Drink. I think the latter is implied in the former. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Jarrett Dieterle. Jarrett, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Finding the silver linings in a year of lockdown, that takes some doing, but you've done it. There are some areas that it's worth noting. Regulations were relaxed, I should say, and it's an indication that maybe less government, not just in those areas, but more generally, would be better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you look historically, most situations of kind of national emergency have almost always led to more power being gathered into the federal government. That's pretty much the history of our country, which makes some sense, obviously, but also has led to a lot of really, deleterious long-term effects. And so it's actually very interesting that with COVID, that wasn't necessarily what happened. It obviously the lockdowns were a huge restriction that government put on. But it was amazing to me that there was even some examples of government actually kind of retracting and getting out of the way. And you saw that in kind of healthcare with telehealth. All of a sudden, people were doing telehealth appointments, and a lot of governors adjusted those laws to allow people to do that. It's not you're not allowed to do every service traditionally via telehealth. You saw it also with allowing sidewalk dining, for example. That's against most zoning codes in a lot of cities, and that was kind of waved away. But I think the greatest example we saw it in was actually alcohol. All of a sudden, restaurants were doing to-go margaritas, and people were getting beer growlers delivered to their door. And I think the government officials did a smart job, at least realizing that the best thing they could do is kind of get out of the way in those situations.
Yeah, best thing they could do is make sure people are numb to what they're doing, and that's the way that we can all get through COVID together. Okay.
Yeah, because to-go alcohol sales in Chicago are not going away, ever.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing too, is that some of the stuff, once you put the toothpaste out of the tube, it's it's a little bit difficult to get it back because now that people have to-go cocktails, they're like, why didn't we have this always? Like all the panic, attack about what it might lead to just didn't materialize. Not every street is turned into Bourbon Street, in New Orleans.
Right.
It hasn't turned crazy. So it's almost like people can be responsible with the liberty they're given.
Imagine that. Yeah. Wow. That's a concept. Well, the other thing though, too, is that the relaxation of some of the regulations because of the political clout of some of these industries, like restaurants, beverage industries, it also gave other sectors leverage to say, well, wait a second. If the restaurant can open at X capacity, or if the restaurant can do this, then how is it you're telling me my church can't have Sunday service? So, it led to, frankly, litigation where part of the argument was retail stores like Walmart are open and this restaurant is at this capacity, but you're treating a place of worship differently. That's a violation of the Constitution, and some churches were able to get relief because of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you even saw that within business categories, too. I mean, some states were allowing certain types of restaurants to open, but not other types of bars or restaurants. And so, yeah, I think there was a lot of kind of people saying, hey, let's treat things equally here, and not kind of differentiate arbitrarily between different kinds of gatherings. So I think you saw that, the church thing is one example. And I think you saw it also just even between business categories, even within one sector. It's just a lot of these, it's kind of what always happens with government. A lot of the distinctions are kind of arbitrary. If you step back and think about it,
Jared, there was a point in time in Chicago when our schools were closed, our churches were closed, but casinos and strip clubs were open.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that you kind of like scratch your head about when you think about, and I think that, people kind of have looked at, why did the restaurants get relief? And I think there's some good reasons for that. But then once you do that, you need to kind of look at how other situations are different, or are they not different? And maybe, that means that there is a way to do it that's responsible. So,
well, I mean, casinos and strip joints. I mean, so, when you have a mob economy like Chicago does, it's all gambling and drugs and prostitution and so forth. I mean, you can't kill the golden geese, and then those are the golden geese for Chicago. But it is interesting. We're seeing it play out right now too. Is Lollapalooza, which starts today.
It's tonight. Yeah, it starts today.
I can't wait.
People are already getting tested on the first floor of your building, Dan.
So CDC mask guidance reversal, and we follow the CDC, we follow the science, unless it involves or runs interference to like looting or voting or Lollapalooza. Then we got to have some carve-outs.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting, even within different kind of categories of festivals, or even bars and restaurants. Kind of what it was funny. I went to my local brewery during the pandemic, and I stood up for a second. I actually had a cramp in my leg, and so I stood up.
Yeah, okay, Norm, get away from the bar for a second. Jeez.
Yeah. They made me put on a mask, and I was like, well, I'm standing at like my table. I'm not like spreading this around anywhere. But yeah, no, I think that again, I think that policymakers, it's somewhat inevitable that they would have difficulty differentiating, but I think sometimes, you need to consider what's going on. Another funny thing that happened with a lot of places that were allowing restaurants to start selling alcohol is that they said, well, you need to have food with it. And then they got into this crazy detail about what constituted food. Like California for a while was saying that salad didn't count as food. It had to be like a entree or a sandwich. And it's like, what are we doing here? Let's step back here and think about what's actually trying to help public health.
Yeah,
so
you need
I think
some
unfortunately
protein.
We saw a lot of it.
Yeah, you need some protein with that salad in order for that to qualify.
I guess
right?
so.
Make sure you get a balanced meal with your booze. No, it's funny because this is sort of it's another lesson in economics 101. It's just different sort of rent-seeking behavior that gets different sort of preferential treatment from the government, but it's sort of the same exercise, and it's really interesting because this is one way to organize an economy and a society is, whoever curries favor with the political class. Another way is to say there's a set of rules and everybody must abide them, and the government's not going to put its finger on the scale for you or against you. But we just seem to be, and I hope some people have learned that lesson, but I suspect that very few have.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the hardest lessons to inculcate into the minds of government officials for sure, and it leads to a whole host of lawsuits and problems and difficulties, no doubt.
He is C.Jarrett Dieterle, resident senior fellow at the R Street Institute. The book, Give Me Liberty and Give Me a Drink. Jarrett, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560.